My mom tried to evict my wife from our apartment while I was blowing out birthday candles. She accidentally texted my wife instead of my sister. The group chat she exposed was 3 months of calculated insanity. All right, Reddit, buckle up because this is going to be a long ride. I'm talking months of conspiracy, secret group chats, paid off replacement girlfriends, and a mom who thought she was running some kind of twisted matchmaking operation. Here's what went down. I'm Ryan, 32 years old, and I own a diesel repair shop in the suburbs outside Portland. Not like a little side hustle garage either. I'm talking a full commercial facility with 6 bays, 3 full-time mechanics, and contracts with 4 logistics companies for their fleet maintenance. I started working on engines when I was 16, went to trade school right after high school, and spent the next 6 years grinding 60-hour weeks at someone else's shop before I saved enough to buy my own place. That was 8 years ago. I was 24, had $40,000 in savings from living like a monk, and found a foreclosed garage that needed about $30,000 in work. Took out a small business loan, worked on the building at night after my day job, and opened Ryan's diesel and heavy equipment repair 3 months later. The first year was brutal. I was the only employee, sleeping on a cot in the office, eating gas station sandwiches, and praying the next repair job would cover my loan payment. But I knew diesel. I knew Cummins engines and Duramax systems and Power Stroke turbos better than most guys twice my age because I actually cared about the work. Logistics companies started hearing about the kid who'd show up at 2 a.m. to get a broken semi back on the road. Word spread. Contracts came in. I hired my first mechanic when I was 26, my second at 28, my third at 30. By the time I turned 31, I was pulling in about $180,000 a year after expenses. Not millionaire money, but solid. Real solid. I bought a 3-bedroom apartment in a decent building for $285,000, paid cash for a 2019 Ram 3500 dually that I use for work, and kept my personal finances completely separate from the business. I learned that from watching my uncle's divorce when I was in high school. His ex-wife took half his auto body shop even though she never turned a wrench in her life. I told myself that would never happen to me. I'm not some genius, just a guy who knows how to fix broken stuff and doesn't quit when things get hard. I wake up at 5:30 every morning, get to the shop by 6, and most days I'm still under a hood at 7 p.m. I don't take vacations unless it's a long weekend. I don't buy expensive clothes or eat at fancy restaurants. My money goes into my business, my apartment, and my future. The shop is my pride. I've got a full diagnostic system, a machine shop for fabricating parts, and enough tools that I could probably rebuild a freight train if someone paid me enough. My mechanics are good guys who actually show up on time and know the difference between a compression issue and a fuel delivery problem. We run a tight operation. I drive a 2015 F-250 as my personal truck, nothing fancy, but it's paid off and runs perfect because I maintain it myself. The apartment is on the second floor of a newer building, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, with parking spaces included. I furnished it slowly over the years. Nothing from a showroom, mostly just functional stuff that looked decent. I had a 55-inch TV, a couch that cost $1,200, a king bed I bought on sale, and a kitchen table I built myself from reclaimed barnwood. This matters because everything I had, I earned. Nobody handed me anything. No trust fund, no inheritance, no lucky breaks. Just 14 years of busted knuckles and diesel fuel under my fingernails. My best friend Trevor has known me since trade school. He's an electrician, runs his own crew doing commercial work, and he's the only person who tells me the truth even when I don't want to hear it. We grab breakfast most Saturday mornings at this diner near my shop, talk about work and life and whatever game was on the night before. Trevor's married to a woman named Beth, who's basically the opposite of dramatic, which is probably why they work. Trevor knew about the apartment before I bought it. He helped me move in. He was there when I signed the papers on the shop. He watched me build everything from nothing, so when things went sideways with my family, he was the first person I called. I met my wife 4 years ago at a friend's wedding. Her name is Madison Leah Patterson, but she goes by Leah because there were 3 Madisons in her high school graduating class, and she got tired of being Madison P. I didn't know any of this when I met her. I just knew she was the bridesmaid who laughed at my joke about the open bar running out of decent options, and we ended up talking for 2 hours about absolutely nothing important. She worked as a dental hygienist at a practice downtown, made about $58,000 a year, and lived in a studio apartment she was trying to save her way out of. She was practical, funny in a dry way that matched my sense of humor, and she didn't flinch when I told her I owned a diesel shop and smelled like motor oil most days. Our first real date was at a burger place where we split a basket of fries and argued about whether the Seahawks defense was actually declining or just getting old. She said declining. I said getting old. We were both right. The first year was solid. We did normal couple stuff. Weekends at the coast, dinners at her place or mine, meeting each other's friends. She got along with Trevor and Beth, which mattered to me. I met her parents, who were fine. A little formal, but nice enough. She met my dad first, then later my mom and sister when they flew out from Arizona for a summer visit. That first meeting with my mom went okay. A little stiff, but okay. Mom made some comments about Leah's job, asking if she ever thought about going back to school for something more professional, which I thought was a weird thing to say since dental hygienists make decent money and it's a respectable career. Leah handled it with grace, just smiled and said she liked what she did. I should have paid more attention to that interaction. Should have seen the judgment underneath. Leah and I moved in together after about 18 months. She gave up her studio and moved into my apartment, which I already owned outright. I didn't ask her to contribute to the mortgage because there wasn't one. I just asked her to cover half the utilities and groceries, which came out to maybe $400 a month. She paid it without complaint. We split everything else pretty evenly. Dinners out, we'd alternate who paid. Trips, we'd split costs. It worked. We got engaged 2 years in. I bought her a ring for $6,800. Nothing massive, but a solid diamond in a white gold setting that she actually wanted. I proposed on a hiking trail near Mount Hood, just the two of us, and a thermos of coffee. She said yes before I finished the question. We set a date for the following spring and started planning something small, maybe 80 people at a venue near the river. Everything was good, really good. We had a routine. She'd leave for work at 7:30. I'd already be at the shop by then. She'd get home around 5. I'd usually be back by 6:30 unless a job ran long. We'd cook together, watch TV, talk about our days. Weekends, we'd do projects around the apartment or meet up with Trevor and Beth for dinner. Normal, stable, boring in the best way possible. My mom called every week or two, usual stuff, asking how I was doing, what was new at the shop. She'd ask about Leah in that way moms do when they're trying to sound interested, but you can tell they're not really. I didn't think much of it. My mom lived in Arizona with my dad, and my sister Madison lived there too, working as an office manager for a dental practice. We saw them maybe twice a year, holidays, and random visits. Looking back, there were small red flags I ignored. Comments from my mom about how Leah seemed comfortable with me paying for most things, even though that wasn't true. Suggestions that I should consider a prenup, which I actually agreed with and had already planned to do. Little remarks about how marriage was a big decision, and I shouldn't rush into anything, even though we'd been together 3 years by that point. I brushed it off because my mom had always been a little controlling, always thought she knew what was best for everyone. My dad was quieter, went along with whatever she said most of the time. My sister was somewhere in the middle, loyal to family but not blind to mom's flaws. The engagement seemed to change something in my mom. She called more often, started asking more pointed questions about wedding costs, about Leah's family contributing, about our finances. I told her we had it handled, that Leah and I were paying for most of it ourselves, with some help from her parents. Mom said that was nice, but maybe we should wait a bit longer, make sure we were really ready. I asked her what she meant. She said nothing, just that divorce was expensive and difficult and she wanted me to be sure. I told her I was sure. She said okay, but her tone said she didn't believe me. Red flag. Big one. I ignored it. My 32nd birthday fell on a Thursday. Leah surprised me with a small party at our favorite cafe downtown. Nothing huge, just close friends and coworkers and family. She'd been planning it for weeks apparently, coordinated with everyone to make sure they could be there. I walked in after work thinking we were just grabbing dinner, and 30 people yelled surprise. It was good. Really good. My mom and sister flew in from Arizona supposedly just to celebrate, which should have been my first clue that something was off because my mom never made birthday visits. She'd call, send a card, maybe a gift card to somewhere I'd never shop, but flying out for a birthday? That wasn't her style. They showed up right as everyone yelled surprise, and mom had this weird energy about her, like she was vibrating with something beyond just party excitement. She kept checking her phone, glancing at my sister, then back to her phone. I figured she was just being her usual high-strung self, probably stressing about something meaningless. The party was going great. I was talking to Trevor about the Trailblazers game from the night before, eating cake that Leah had ordered from the bakery I actually liked, feeling pretty good about turning 32. That's when I noticed Mom pull my sister aside near the restrooms. They were maybe 20 feet away, and I had a clear view even though I was mid-conversation with Trevor. Mom leaned in close, whispered something in Madison's ear, and I saw my sister's eyes go wide for just a second before she nodded. Then Mom said something else, and Madison pulled out her phone, typed something, and showed it to Mom. They both looked at the screen. Mom nodded with this satisfied smile, and Madison grabbed her purse and headed for the exit. The whole interaction took maybe 90 seconds, but something about it felt wrong. Really wrong. I excused myself from Trevor and caught up with Madison at the door. She was already halfway out when I asked where she was going. She barely looked at me, said she needed to grab something from the car and that she'd be back soon. Her voice was shaky. She wouldn't make eye contact. Madison's been a terrible liar since we were kids. But I didn't push it because I had a cafe full of people waiting for me to cut the cake. She was gone for over an hour. I kept checking the door, kept asking Mom where Madison went, and Mom just waved me off with excuses about traffic and pharmacy runs and phone calls that didn't make any sense. When Madison finally came back, she looked like she'd seen a ghost. Pale, sweating even though it was 60 degrees outside, hands trembling when she reached for her water glass. She walked straight to Mom, leaned down and whispered something that made Mom's face cycle through confusion to panic to anger in about 3 seconds flat. I tried to get closer to hear what they were saying, but Leah pulled me away to talk to her parents, who were leaving early. The rest of the party was me forcing smiles while watching Mom and Madison have what looked like an increasingly heated, whispered argument in the corner. Around 9 p.m., everyone started heading out. Mom suddenly announced she was tired and needed to get back to her hotel. She hugged me goodbye, held on a little too long, and said something about how she hoped this year would bring big changes for me. Madison barely said goodbye at all, just waved from across the room and followed Mom out the door. Leah and I stayed behind to help the cafe staff clean up, which took another 30 minutes. The whole drive home, Leah kept asking if I noticed how weird my mom and sister were acting. I told her I noticed but had no idea what was going on. I figured I'd text Madison tomorrow to find out what the hell was happening. We pulled into our apartment building around 10:15. I grabbed my birthday cards and leftover cake from the back seat. Walked up to our second-floor apartment thinking about how I needed to deal with whatever family drama was brewing. I put my key in the lock, turned it, and nothing happened. I tried again. Jiggled the handle. Checked if I was using the right key. Leah was right behind me asking what was wrong, and I told her the lock wasn't working. She tried her key. Same result. That's when I looked down and saw 3 cardboard boxes stacked against the wall next to our door. My boxes. I recognized them immediately because I'm the kind of person who labels everything. My gaming console was visible through the open flap of one box. My winter jacket stuffed in another. My label maker stickers from when we moved in 5 years ago still on the sides. I looked at Leah. She looked at the boxes. Then we both looked at the door. Before either of us could say anything, the door opened from inside. My mom was standing there in my apartment with a spare key in her hand. Behind her, in my hallway, my wedding photo was already taken down from the wall. I could see Leah's suitcases packed and ready by the couch. Leah pushed past me, past my mom, and I heard her say, "What the hell did you do?" in a voice I'd never heard her use before. I followed them inside. That's when I saw Mom's phone on the kitchen counter, screen still lit up. The message thread was open, and I could see it clearly from where I stood. It was a group chat labeled Project Madison with 3 participants. Mom's number, my sister's number, and a third number I didn't recognize. The last message, sent at 8:47 p.m. from my mom, read, "While everyone's here, go and change the locks at their apartment. Get her stuff out before they get home. Madison, take care of it now." The message below it from my sister, sent at 8:53, read, "Mom, I think you sent this to the wrong Madison. I'm looking at Leah right now and she's reading everything. What do I do?" I stood there staring at that screen, my brain trying to process what I was seeing. Then Leah turned around, holding her phone up, showing me the exact same message thread. My mom had 2 contacts named Madison in her phone. My sister Madison in Arizona, and my wife Madison Leah, who goes by her middle name. She'd sent the instructions to change the locks and pack up my wife's belongings to my actual wife instead of my sister. Leah's voice was ice cold when she said, "Your mother has been planning to evict me from my own home for 3 months, and she just accidentally showed me everything." The next hour was complete chaos. My mom tried to explain, tried to say she was protecting me, tried to claim that Leah wasn't right for our family. Leah just stood there scrolling through months of messages on her phone, her face getting paler with every swipe. I grabbed Mom's phone off the counter and started reading the group chat myself. The third number belonged to someone named Amber, and the messages went back to late July, right after I got promoted from shop manager to full owner, when I bought out my old partner's remaining 20% stake. The earliest message from Mom read, "He's making $180,000 now. She's going to take half of everything if we don't act fast. Amber, you deserve this chance." I looked at my mom and asked who the hell Amber was. She pressed her lips together and said nothing. Leah answered for her. Said Amber was Mom's college roommate's daughter, recently divorced, living in Scottsdale. I'd met her exactly once at a family barbecue 3 years ago. Talked to her for maybe 5 minutes about nothing important. I told my mom to get out. I told her I never wanted to see her again. She started crying, saying I didn't understand, that she was trying to help me. I pointed at the door and said if she didn't leave in the next 30 seconds, I was calling the police. She left, took her overnight bag from our guest room and walked out. Madison tried to stay behind, tried to apologize, but I told her to go with Mom and figure out whose side she was actually on. After they left, Leah and I sat on the couch and went through everything. Every message in that group chat. 3 months of detailed planning. I'm talking spreadsheets-level organization. Here's what I found. The plan started in late July after Mom learned about my promotion and salary increase. The messages showed she'd been worried for over a year that Leah was using me for financial security, even though Leah had her own job and never asked me for money beyond splitting basic expenses. Mom had reached out to Amber in early August with a proposal. She told Amber that I was in an unhappy marriage, that I'd been talking about leaving Leah for months but didn't have the courage, and that Amber and I would be perfect together. She showed Amber photos of me from family events, told her about my business, basically created a dating profile without my knowledge or consent. The money started flowing in mid-August. Mom sent Amber $3,000 on August 12th with a note saying, "For your fresh start." Another $2,500 on August 28th labeled, "Apartment deposit help." $4,000 on September 15th for furnishing your place. $5,500 on September 30th, marked final preparations. Total, $15,000 transferred from my parents' savings account to a woman I'd met once, all to set up some kind of backup girlfriend situation. The messages got more detailed as time went on. Mom coached Amber on what to say when we naturally met again, what to wear, what interest to pretend to have. There were messages where Mom described my daily routine, my favorite foods, the kind of movies I liked, stuff a stalker would know. The plan for my birthday was the execution phase. Mom and Madison were supposed to fly out, distract everyone with the party, and while we were all at the cafe, Madison would go to our apartment, use the spare key Mom had secretly copied months ago, change the locks, pack Leah's belongings, and put them outside. The idea was that when Leah and I got home, she'd be locked out. We'd get into a huge fight about her overreacting, and I'd end up staying with Trevor while the situation cooled down. During that cooling off period, Mom would convince me that the marriage was over, introduce me to Amber, who would be visiting Arizona for unrelated reasons, and nature would take its course. The most disturbing message was from October 29th, 4 days before my birthday. Mom wrote to Amber, "He's going to be vulnerable and confused when this happens. That's when you step in and show him what real partnership looks like. You'll be his soft place to land. This is going to work." I felt sick reading it. This wasn't some impulsive bad decision. This was calculated manipulation over months. My own mother had spent a quarter of the year plotting to destroy my marriage and replace my wife with someone she'd handpicked and paid for. Leah sat next to me reading the same messages on her phone. When we finished, she looked at me and asked what I wanted to do. I said, "Document everything. Then we deal with this properly." We spent the next 2 hours taking screenshots of every single message, every bank transfer, every photo Mom had shared of me, every coaching message to Amber, every detail of the plan. I created a folder on my laptop labeled Mom's Insanity and organized everything by date and category. Then I called Trevor. It was almost 1 a.m., but he answered on the second ring because that's what best friends do. I told him he needed to come over, that something had happened, and I needed a witness. He showed up 20 minutes later in sweatpants and a hoodie, and I walked him through the entire situation from start to finish. Trevor's response was perfect. "Your mom is out of her mind." Like, clinically. This is restraining order level crazy. He helped me change our door locks that night. He happened to have a spare deadbolt set in his truck from a job site, and we installed it at 2 a.m. in our hallway, while Leah watched YouTube tutorials on her phone and handed us tools. The old lock went in a plastic bag as evidence in case we needed to prove Mom had access. The next morning, I called my lawyer. Same guy who handled my business contracts. Sharp guy named Peter who didn't mess around. I explained the situation, sent him the entire evidence folder, and asked what my options were. He said this was harassment, potentially identity theft, depending on how mom got the spare key made, and definitely grounds for a restraining order. He told me to document any further contact, not to engage with my mom directly, and to keep copies of everything in multiple locations. I followed his advice to the letter. I copied all the screenshots to a cloud drive, to an external hard drive, and emailed them to myself and Leah from a new email address I created specifically for this situation. I wrote down a timeline of everything that had happened, every detail I could remember, while it was fresh. Then I drove to my mom's hotel. She was staying at an Embassy Suites about 15 minutes from our apartment. I showed up at 9:30 a.m., asked the front desk to call her room, and told them her son was here to see her. She came down to the lobby 10 minutes later, looking like she'd been crying, mascara smudged, eyes red. We sat in the lobby restaurant area, and I put my phone on the table between us, recording the conversation. I told her I was recording. She said that wasn't fair. I said nothing about this situation was fair. I asked her to explain the group chat. She tried to play dumb at first, said she didn't know what I was talking about. I pulled up the screenshots on my phone and slid it across the table to her. She looked at the screen and her whole face just collapsed. I was trying to help you, she said. Help me by destroying my marriage? She's not right for you, Ryan. She's comfortable. She's settled. You deserve someone who pushes you to be better. I am better. I built a successful business. I own my home. I'm happy. What part of that needs fixing? You think you're happy now, but in 10 years when she's taken half of everything and you're paying alimony, you'll wish you'd listened to me. Leah has never asked me for anything. She pays her share. She works hard. What exactly has she done that makes you think she's using me? Mom didn't have an answer for that. Just kept saying she had a feeling, a mother's intuition, that something was wrong. I asked her about the $15,000. She said it was her money to spend how she wanted. I pointed out it was Dad's money too. And did he know she'd been sending thousands of dollars to set up some kind of arranged relationship for her adult son? She said Dad didn't understand these things like she did. I asked her if she realized she'd just destroyed her relationship with me, that I would never trust her again, that she'd never meet my future kids, that she was choosing her fantasy over her actual son. She started crying harder and said I was being cruel, said I'd understand when I was a parent someday, said she'd do it again because she knew what was best for me. That's when I knew there was no fixing this. No conversation that would make her see how messed up this was. She genuinely believed she was right. I told her she needed to stay away from me, stay away from Leah, and stay away from our apartment. I told her if she contacted either of us, I'd file for a restraining order. I told her she'd just lost her son. She said I was being dramatic, that I'd cool down in a few weeks, and we'd talk about this reasonably. I said, Mom, you hired a replacement wife for me like I'm a broken appliance. There's nothing reasonable about any of this. I left her sitting there and drove back home, blocked her number on my phone, blocked her email, blocked her on every social media platform I had. Then I called my dad. My dad answered on the second ring. I could hear he was at a hardware store by the announcement system in the background. I told him he needed to sit down, that I had something to tell him about Mom. He said he was in the middle of buying supplies for a deck project, and could it wait? I said no, it really couldn't. Something in my voice made him go quiet. I told him everything, every single detail from the group chat to the lawyer to the $15,000 to Amber. There was silence on the other end for a long time, and then he asked me to send him screenshots of everything I had. I spent 20 minutes forwarding him photos of the messages, the bank statements, the folder contents, all of it. He called me back 30 minutes later, and his voice sounded different, older somehow. He said he'd noticed money missing from their savings account, but Mom told him it was for a medical procedure she was embarrassed to discuss. He said Mom had been acting strange since summer, secretive with her phone, taking calls in other rooms, spending hours online, but nothing ever arrived at the house. He said he was going to confront her immediately, and he'd call me back. 3 hours later, my dad called again. He said the confrontation had gone about as badly as possible. Mom admitted to everything, but showed zero remorse. Said she'd do it again because she knew what was best for her son. When Dad asked her if she understood she'd just destroyed their marriage too, she told him he was being dramatic. My dad, who'd been married to this woman for 36 years, said he was meeting with a divorce lawyer on Monday morning. He apologized to me about a dozen times, said he had no idea Mom was capable of this level of manipulation. I told him none of this was his fault. He said he should have paid more attention to the warning signs. I said we both should have. Meanwhile, Leah had contacted Amber directly through social media, sent her a message that basically said, "Hi, I'm the wife you were being paid to replace. We need to talk." Amber responded within an hour, saying she'd figured out something was wrong and wanted to explain everything. Leah told her we were flying to Arizona the next day, and we'd meet her in person. We booked flights that afternoon, landed in Phoenix at 8 p.m., and drove straight to the address Madison had given me for Amber's apartment. It was a new complex in Scottsdale, the kind with a pool and gym and coded entry. We waited in the parking lot until someone left the building and caught the door. Amber lived on the third floor, Unit 314. Leah knocked. When Amber opened the door, I saw her face go from confused to panicked in about 2 seconds. She recognized me immediately, then saw Leah standing next to me and tried to close the door. Leah put her foot in the doorway and said, "We just want to talk, and then we'll leave you alone forever." Amber let us in. Her apartment was nicer than ours, which made sense considering she'd just received $15,000 from my mom. We all stood in her living room, nobody sitting down, and I asked her to explain her role in all of this. She said my mom had reached out to her back in July, said she was worried about me being in an unhappy marriage, said she thought Amber and I would be perfect together. Mom told her I'd been talking about leaving Leah for months, but didn't have the courage to do it. Amber said she was lonely after her divorce, and Mom was so convincing, so concerned, that she believed her. The money started coming in August, and Mom told her it was to help her get settled and prepare for when I'd need a place to stay after the separation. Amber showed us her phone, a thread with my mom that was even more detailed than the group chat. Mom had sent her photos of me from family events, told her about my business and my hobbies, basically created a profile like I was on a dating app. There were messages where Mom coached Amber on what to say when we finally met, what to wear, what kind of interest to pretend to have. The most disturbing message was from 3 weeks ago. "He's going to be vulnerable and confused when this happens. That's when you step in and show him what real partnership looks like. You'll be his soft place to land." Leah asked Amber if she ever considered that this was completely insane. Amber started crying, said she realized about a week ago that something was very wrong, but she'd already accepted the money and didn't know how to back out. She said she was planning to return the money and cut contact with my mom, but hadn't figured out how to do it yet. Leah just shook her head and said, "You're 34 years old. Figure it out faster." We left Amber's apartment and drove back to the airport. My dad called while we were sitting at the gate waiting for a red-eye back home. He said he'd confronted Mom as soon as she got back from her hotel, and she'd admitted to everything. She didn't apologize, didn't show any remorse, just said she'd do it again because she knew what was best for her son. My dad told her she'd just destroyed their marriage too. She said he was being dramatic. He said he was done, that 36 years of marriage wasn't enough to overlook something this calculated and cruel. The next 2 weeks were a blur of legal paperwork and family drama. My sister Madison called me crying, saying she was sorry, that she didn't know the full extent of Mom's plan until that night. She said Mom told her it was just about having a conversation with Leah about their relationship concerns, not evicting her from the apartment. I told Madison I believed her, but she needed to decide if she was going to keep enabling Mom's behavior or establish some boundaries. She said she'd think about it. Trevor and Beth came over most nights just to check on us. Trevor brought pizza and beer, sat on my couch, and said things like, "Your mom watched too many Hallmark movies," and "This is some Parent Trap level scheming gone wrong." It helped. Having someone who could find humor in the absolute insanity of the situation helped more than I expected. Update. 6 months later. 6 months have passed since my 32nd birthday party turned into a family implosion. My dad's divorce was finalized last month. He moved into a condo about 20 minutes from us, started going to therapy twice a week, and honestly seems happier than I've seen him in years. He stops by the shop sometimes just to hang out, brings coffee, watches me work on engines. We talk more now than we did in the previous decade combined. Leah and I got married in a small ceremony at the courthouse with Trevor and Beth as witnesses. No big wedding, no family drama, just us and the people who actually showed up when things got hard. We're planning a bigger celebration next year when things feel less raw, but for now, this works. We had our locks changed again, this time by a professional locksmith who required 2 forms of ID and a background check. We installed a Ring doorbell camera. We updated our wills and power of attorney to specifically exclude my mother from any decision-making capacity. We drew a line in the sand with my extended family. Anyone who tries to play mediator or guilt us into reconciling with Mom gets cut off too. My mom has tried reaching out exactly 47 times. I know because I keep a log. Text messages from new numbers, emails from new addresses, letters sent to the shop, packages left at our door. I document everything, save everything, and respond to nothing. My lawyer has all of it in case we need to escalate to a restraining order. The most recent attempt was last week. She showed up at the shop during business hours, walked right past my receptionist, and found me in the middle of diagnosing a transmission issue on a freight hauler. I looked up, saw her standing there, and calmly told my mechanic to call the police if she didn't leave in the next 60 seconds. She tried to say she just wanted to apologize properly. I kept working on the transmission. She stood there for another 30 seconds, then left when she heard my mechanic on the phone with dispatch. I haven't spoken directly to her since that morning in the hotel lobby. Madison and I talk occasionally. She moved to Seattle 3 months ago, took a job at a pediatric dental office, and put 1,200 miles between herself and mom. She's in therapy dealing with years of mom's controlling behavior that she's finally starting to recognize as abnormal. We're rebuilding slowly, but it's fragile. She understands that her relationship with me depends on her maintaining boundaries with mom. Amber returned $12,000 of the $15,000, said she'd spent the other $3,000 on furniture and couldn't get it back. Leah and I told her to keep it all, that we didn't want blood money and she should use it to get her own therapy. She sent a long apology letter that honestly just made both of us tired. We didn't respond. The shop is doing better than ever. I picked up 2 new contracts with shipping companies, hired a 4th mechanic, and bought a diagnostic machine that cost $45,000 but pays for itself in efficiency. I work the same hours, wake up at the same time, do the same job I've always done. The difference is I stopped answering my phone when numbers I don't recognize call, and I stopped feeling guilty about protecting my peace. Leah's thriving too. She got promoted to lead hygienist at her practice, got a raise to $64,000, and started taking online classes toward a degree in dental practice management. She's tougher than I gave her credit for. The whole situation with my mom could have broken us, but instead it just showed me who she really is when things get hard. She doesn't run. She doesn't fold. She stands her ground and deals with what's in front of her. Trevor still gives me grief about the whole thing. Last Saturday at breakfast, he said, "Your mom tried to parent trap you at 32 years old. That's going in my best man speech whenever you do the real wedding." I told him he's not invited to the real wedding if he keeps bringing it up. He said, "Guess who's bringing it up in my speech then?" That's friendship. I learned some things from this mess. I learned that family isn't automatic, that blood relation doesn't excuse manipulation, and that the people who actually love you respect your choices even when they disagree with them. I learned that documentation is everything, that lawyers exist for a reason, and that protecting what you built is never petty when someone's actively trying to destroy it. Most importantly, I learned that my mom's opinion of my marriage means absolutely nothing compared to my actual experience living in it. She never saw Leah help me through a rough business quarter, never saw her bring me coffee at 2 a.m. when I was doing emergency repairs to meet a contract deadline, never saw the 1,000 small ways we take care of each other that don't fit into her fantasy of what my life should look like. She wanted to save me from a woman who was supposedly using me. Instead, she showed me exactly who deserves to be cut out of my life to protect what actually matters. The apartment's quiet tonight. Leah's reading on the couch, our dog's asleep on her feet, and I'm finishing up some paperwork for a contract renewal. In a few minutes, I'll close my laptop, sit next to my wife, and watch whatever true crime show she's currently obsessed with. This is the life my mom tried to destroy. This is what she thought needed fixing. Looking around right now, I don't see a single thing that needs her help, and you know what? That's exactly how it's staying. Update: 3 days after posting. So this blew up way more than I expected. Thanks for all the support and the messages. A few people asked for an update, so here's what happened since I posted. First, my mom found the post. I don't know how, because I don't use my real name on here, and I didn't include identifying details, but apparently someone she knows saw it, recognized the story, and sent it to her. She called my dad, losing her mind about me airing family business on the internet. My dad's response was apparently, "Maybe don't try to evict your daughter-in-law next time." She hung up on him. Second, Amber contacted Leah again through Facebook, said she'd been following the post, felt terrible all over again, and wanted us to know she'd blocked my mom on everything, and started seeing a counselor about why she let herself get manipulated into such an insane situation. She sent back another $2,000, even though we told her not to, said she felt like she needed to clear the debt to move on. Leah and I donated it to a women's shelter in Phoenix, figured the money could do some actual good instead of sitting in our account reminding us of this mess. Third, and this is the wild part, my mom's best friend Linda called me yesterday. Haven't heard from Linda in probably 5 years, but apparently she and my mom had a falling out over this whole situation. Linda said mom had been bragging about her plan to save Ryan from a gold digger at their book club for months, And Linda thought it was just venting until she saw the Reddit post and realized mom actually went through with it. Linda apologized for not saying something sooner. Said she thought mom was just being overdramatic like usual, not actively planning to destroy my marriage. She told me mom's been essentially excommunicated from their social circle in Arizona because everyone thinks she's lost her mind. I thanked Linda for calling and told her I appreciated her reaching out, but that ship had sailed. She understood. My sister Madison flew up from Seattle last weekend. We grabbed breakfast at the diner where Trevor and I usually meet, and she told me she's been processing a lot in therapy about how mom operated growing up. Turns out the controlling behavior and manipulation wasn't just reserved for me. Madison dealt with years of mom trying to manage her relationships, her career choices, her entire life. She just never saw it clearly until the birthday party disaster made it impossible to ignore. We're working on rebuilding. It's slow, but it's happening. Leah's been reading through the comments on the post and laughing at some of the responses. Her favorite comment was someone who said, "Your mom sent the delete wife instruction to the wife. That's advanced stupid." She's not wrong. The shop's still running smooth. The new diagnostic machine is already paying for itself. Life's good. And my mom's still blocked on everything. Some people in the comments asked if I felt bad about cutting off my mother permanently. Honest answer? Not even a little bit. There's a difference between a parent making a mistake and a parent spending 3 months and $15,000 executing a calculated plan to destroy your marriage. One of those things you can forgive. The other one gets you permanently blocked. Someone else asked what I'd say if my mom genuinely apologized and took responsibility. Hypothetically, I'd listen, but that would require her to actually believe she did something wrong. And based on everything I've seen, she still thinks she was right. So until she develops the capacity for self-reflection, the answer's still no contact. Thanks again for all the support, Reddit. This was wild to watch blow up. Some of you suggested I turn this into a Lifetime movie. Hard pass, but I appreciate the confidence. Trevor says I should write a book called How My Mom Tried to Parent Trap My Marriage and Accidentally Texted My Wife. I told him the title's too long. He said that's what editors are for. We'll see. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.